Hello everybody and welcome to Darkest Dungeon. This is side B of episode 50. I wanted to release this about a week ago, but I've been heavily distracted. I felt like the other episode, while entertaining, was not quite as informative as I'd like to for a new event. So I'm just redoing this video as something as a way for people to understand how this event works. The first thing to note is that a lot of the encounters here initially are regular enemies, because events like these aren't really so much regular missions so much as set pieces. A lot of missions that are labeled as Darkest don't really have a random element to it. They have a pre-generated map with pre-generated encounters. And if you know what's happening ahead of time, you could definitely plan ahead. Like, nothing about this is dynamic at all. It's all one prepared instance. Now for Vulf, they start you off with some of the more common brigands. You're fighting stuff that you'd see in like amateur or mid-level dungeons because this is a invasion of the town, so they're putting in their shock troopers first.
Brought low and driven into the mud.
Now the big thing to note about the town defense mission is that there are going to be 5 walls total in this area. But when you're preparing for the mission, you only have 4 shovels available to you. Because of that, there's going to be at least one instance where if you go for absolutely everything, you're going to be tearing down a wall by hand. Another thing to note is that since all Darkest Dungeon missions of the Darkest level are set pieces, the map will always be scouted. It won't show you what you're going to fight, but you're going to be well aware of what the map looks like, at least. Actually, I take that back. You won't know what the map is, but you do know what you're gonna see. Ugh, a little. Now, the thing about brigands is that they're not really one for stress damage in general. Up until this point in the game, you have not been fighting stress whatsoever. To offset this from the more Darkest element of these missions, they specifically put madmen in each mission in order to give stress damage to each of your characters. Now, one thing that they also do in this mission is that they give the hunters stress damage as well. Now, between these two, stress damage is rather prevalent in this game, or in this mission. In between the madmen and the guns actively doing 5 stress to everybody, stress is kind of heavy here. And since you can't camp, you can't actively reduce stress just in general. Had I had the opportunity and had I known ahead of time my team comp would have worked as well, I probably would have packed a Jester mainly to actively assassinate that madman there with Finale, and just in general to restore stress, because as you saw in the A side of the video, stress became the reason why my ran ended so swiftly. Also, I'm mentioning it's 3 minutes in the video, but it's probably going to be a bit more light commentary.
Their formation is broken. Maintain the offensive.
The dogs are nothing new, they're just highly evasive. They're supposed to act as kind of the thematic pack hounds for the wolves, but it's kind of weird that a pack of bandits have undead dogs as their harrying hounds.
How quickly the tide turns. Press this advantage. Give them no quarter. fiend falls, a faint hope blossoms.
Now, in terms of supplies, I noticed this when I was pulling up my inventory. Specifically for Vulf, there's going to be a high emphasis on bleed damage. So get all the band-aids you can, that'll help a lot. If you want to prepare specifically for that, Plague Doctor's really good. Also, I would probably say anyone with anti-bleed traits or abilities would be good. I brought food on this mission because I thought I would need the extra healing. Now, I probably would have if I had packed a Jester instead of an Occultist, but I wasn't too sure if I would need the food or not, and it turns out I didn't. I really didn't need the food, however, stress damage became my ultimate undoing.
Such a terrible assault cannot be left unanswered. The ground quakes. Prodigious size alone does not dissuade the sharpened blade.
Now, the main reason why I'm going for Vulf first is because I was hoping to get all the other treasure in the area. In every single treasure room where you could get an Ancestor's Trinket, the area is guarded by a gunner and a madman, so stress damage is going to be abound. Also, I put a bunch of holy waters here, mainly for the bleed resist, because of, I wouldn't say Vulf's gimmick, but mainly the gimmick of this dungeon as a whole. Now to explain how to handle Vulf. Vulf operates exactly like the, what's it called? The Gibbering Prophet. So if you want to completely trivialize this guy, you want to bring 2 Occultists and use Weakening Curse to completely nullify his bomb. I only have 1, so that means while the bomb is actively negated, it's not completely nullified. This is because of the 2-action system that bosses get later in the game. For each action, the curse goes down 1 ticker, so while the curse has a duration of 3, it goes down 2 every turn. Now, the other way to handle this is to bring a Man-at-Arms. Most people tend to bring Houndmasters as well, because some people have a propensity of enjoying dodge over prot. But Brigand Vulf has a very high hit rate, and the bomb does roughly 40 damage in general. The fact that it's only doing 8 or 9, or even 6, is because not only am I weakening cursing him, I also have a Man-at-Arms, which is increasing prot. So while I'm taking damage, it's not a lot. Now here's the thing I mentioned in the first version of this video. I kind of understand what they were going for with Brigand Vulf, but it does feel a little odd here. The gimmick is he uses his buddies to do damage alongside his bombs, meanwhile his Scream does stress damage. But the thing is, by using his guard ability to guard his friends, he puts himself wide open for Lepi Garnola. So any frontline units can actively hit Vulf no problem. And I think because of this, the boss fight becomes a little bit easier. Having someone deal roughly 20 to 40 damage on average is kinda nuts. It also helps that I geared up for stun on one of the characters, because a lot of the damage is gonna come from the Brigand blood, the advanced bandits, mainly because they have high damage, high bleed output, and there's 2 of them. By stunning one, you remove the action without removing the problem. And the big issue is if you do happen to kill one, Vulf will just will just summon another and stun your allies at the same time. So it's better to just stun these guys in like an alternating fashion rather than, you know, actively try to kill them. Now, I also mentioned in the video before, most people would think attack the bombs. Attack the bomb barrel will stop the bombs, right? It actually does not. By attacking the bomb barrel, you get riposted with roughly half the damage of a regular bomb. And the moment it breaks, Vulf will just summon another one. So really what you want to do for this fight is stun the unguarded bandit, attack the one who is guarded to kill Vulf, and use your frontliners to mitigate frontline damage. I wouldn't say a man-at-arms is mandatory here, but it certainly does neutralize the gimmick. You could definitely do this boss fight without a man-at-arms or anyone with guard. I just feel like it makes it a lot easier. Also, due to all the stress damage, we have a Vice proc.
At any cost.
Selfish isn't actually bad, it's just, you know, eh. The only thing bad that could come from Selfish is that he took his own action, but since Vulf is almost dead by this point, the proc doesn't really do anything. This is actually a pretty good boss fight. I like the idea. I just feel like Vulf guarding his men from a mechanical standpoint makes it a little bit easier than it should be. I know Risen in the commentary made mention that he's the exact opposite of the situation. Instead of summoning guards to protect him, he summons guards and protects them. He's a good bandit, quote unquote. Now, once you're done with Vulf, you still have the two raiders to deal with. However, these guys are no spring chickens. I remember the first time I played this, I managed to beat Vulf no problem. However, when I got to these two, they actively spiked down one of my bounty hunters and killed him. So, don't think you're out of the woods just yet just because the boss is dead. Especially if you plan to raid the entire dungeon. Also, one thing I should mention, someone in the comments or the thread might point this out here, but for whatever reason, the raiders have a skill right here, Shank. Not only does it bleed, it marks, but in my research, I haven't seen any documentation to lead that any of the raiders gain benefits from marks. None of the low-level ones do, and the ones that were originally made specifically for base defense don't have any benefit either. So I'm wondering why the mark is there. If someone could tell me why that mark is there, that'd be interesting. I checked the Darkest Dungeon wiki for it, but I think it's way out of date in some regards to information. Now, it would have been better if I saved this trinket for last, honestly, because there's no real threat in between this route and the next. Now, I kind of ragged on this on the video, but plus 20 AC to range attack is pretty good, especially in the darkest, in the later missions of Champion and Darkest, where enemies with high evasion become kind of a common thing. So having that extra accuracy is really good for just, you know, landing a critical hit. For something like, say, an Arbalist or a Grave Robber, it may not be useful, but maybe something like, say, a Plague Doctor or a Houndmaster, I could see those guys needing the extra accuracy. There is a melee equivalent to that. There's the Ancestor's Pen. I know I have the Ancestor's Signet Ring, which gives protection and accuracy, but the Ancestor's Pen gives you melee damage, melee accuracy, and melee crit. If I had that as well, Leopard Granola would be kind of a juggernaut.
The way is lit. The path is clear. We require only the strength to follow it.
Probably should have used stun there, honestly. Ah, well, it doesn't matter.
Success so clearly in view. Or is it merely a trick of the light? Back to the pit. A singular strike. Seize this momentum. Push on to the task's end.
Now, it's this point of the mission that you begin to realize, man, stress damage is piling up. Like I mentioned it before in the video, Jester would have really helped here. And it also doesn't help that there's no camping here. Naturally, it makes sense. This is a base defense mission. You can't camp in the middle of your village being raided. But I don't know if I would say Jester is mandatory here. I've been enjoying the luxury that is Jester lately, mainly because Finale is really good, and stress healing helps a lot in champion dungeons. I feel like if I had an opportunity to bring my Jester, I would have been able to continue further. But honestly, with all the crits and the stress piling up, I had to get out later in the video. But in general, you could probably go out here before fighting Vulf, but the issue being is there's just a lot of crits that go on. And just extending the thing in general puts you in a weaker state for fighting Vulf. I wanted to get Vulf done with ASAP, because once you're done with Vulf, you could explore the rest of the dungeon at your leisure. Get the mission done first, then risk your life for trinkets and valuables. One of them being a stupid handkerchief. I don't like some of the Ancestors trinkets, the handkerchief and mustache cream being the big culprits. If you weren't looking, handkerchief gives you bleed and blight resist, which sounds pretty good, because DOTs later on become kind of a big thing. However, I would not waste a trinket slot on bleed and blight resist, especially when it gives me plus stress damage. Because later on in the game, plus stress damage becomes quite heinous. The other one that I was discussing is Ancestor's Mustache Cream. I believe that is something else. Let me double check here. Fact checking on the middle of an LP. That's what I'm good for here. Ancestor's Mustache Cream is Blight and Debuff Resist, which is stacking up on... Oh, I see. The handkerchief is Disease Resist. I mistaken it because Blight and Disease have that same tinge of green. But yeah, the Mustache Cream is Debuff and Blight Resist, which is equally as bad, honestly. I don't think there's any debilitating debuffs in this game. If there are none that you cannot resist. I can think of one debuff that is bad that we haven't seen yet in the LP, but that one is irresistible. and also new. But yeah, Mustache Cream and Handkerchief are instant sell, in my opinion. Those aren't really
Many
good.
fall in the face of chaos, but not this one. Not today.
One thing that I'm kind of weirded out on is the Ancestor's Pistol only gives you plus 20 accuracy, however the Musket Ball gives you damage and crit rate. I feel like you could have compiled those into one accessory, but eh. Because you also have the Pen, which is all three of those for melee in one. So I don't know why the Musket Ball and the Pistol are separated aside from purely storytelling purposes.
As victories mount, so too will resistance.
Yeah, here's where the stress damage starts
Without
coming
tools
in.
of iron, you must rely on flesh and indefatigable purpose.
Since I don't have shovels, I have to rely on just digging on them with my bare hand. And here you can see that the this area is a set piece because from the start, if you go along both sides, you fight the same kind of enemies and you find the same map with a tent. That's how you can tell this is a set piece. And this is also the same encounter that we fought before on the other side. But because of that, the stress becomes harder to bear. Abusive is actually kind of the worst thing you could get because
Fragile, like a robin's egg.
abuse as a vice is really bad because it gives all your players stress damage, and in the situation we're in, that's not good whatsoever. Also, crits don't help. They really don't.
There can be no hope in this hell. No hope at all.
Just for context there, I was weighing the option between Hue and Chop. Chop is a better option because it had the rare chance to kill, and Hue had a high chance to miss against the dog, which is not surprising. Leper versus dog is kinda nuts. Lucy Wannabe got hopeless, so that causes her to do either pass her turn in general or do her own action. The vices are kind of debilitating once you get hit by them.
That devastating blow.
Really should take out that Madman, but the stun I was hoping to land didn't. So, Madman's gonna get a turn here.
Precision and power.
Man, 1 HP away from killing that dog. So close. Yeah, as you can see, the stress damage is piling up here. And the next fight has us fighting 2 Madmen and 1 Gunner, so the stress is gonna pile up even more. And our HP is getting relatively low, mostly due to crits. HP I could have handled because I have a lot of food, I could have utilized that. However, given how our stress damage is piling up, I just didn't want to risk it.
These nightmarish creatures can be felled. They can be beaten.
Now, I didn't detail it in the video, but Vulf's Tassel is pretty damn good. It gives anyone who equips it the same capacities as, say, an Arbalist or a Bounty Hunter have. It lets you hit it gives you plus accuracy and plus damage towards marked targets. Now, this is pretty good because you could give someone, you could make anyone an off an off attacker based on what's it called? The bounty hunter's gimmick. Or you can make the bounty hunter and arbalist much better. But yeah, thanks for watching this side video of Darkest Dungeon. I did this because the main video for this wasn't really informative, so I wanted to put something out that was more intuitive. New episodes should continue soon. I've just been kind of preoccupied.